At the beginning of the story, a war is raging somewhere not far from our view. A boy named Amushiba appears, and with a firm tone, Amu says that the situation is getting more dangerous, and they have to defeat it. This war is not without reason. In the mid-21st century, Japan faced a series of pressing crises, from failed economic policies to an aging population, bringing the country close to collapse. Facing this chaos, major powers intervened, pretending to offer economic assistance and maintain peace, but in reality, they spread military forces and expanded their influence. This intervention eventually sparked a border war, where the battlefield was dominated by unmanned humanoid machines known as AMAIM, equipped with advanced tactical eye systems. In 2021, Japan was divided, with almost all its territory under foreign control. Amid the chaos, Amu and some of his friends found a damaged AMAIM lying in the forest. They decided to take some parts of the machine and bring them home. After that, Amu's friends dropped off the machine parts in front of his house. However, on the other hand, Amu saw some men come and insult his family in a very rude way before leaving a deep frustration in Amu's heart. The incident made Amu feel terrible. After all that passed, Amu decided to go home, clean up, and turn on the television. The news on the screen only displayed reports about the increasing terrorist incidents, adding to Amu's mental burden. The next day, Amu decided to return to the forest. This time, he went alone. There, Amu found more AMAIM parts and began collecting them. However, just as he was about to leave the forest, Amu heard someone calling for help. Moving carefully toward the source of the sound, Amu found an autonomous AI named Guy, who was repeatedly asking for help. Although he initially wanted to ignore the AI, Amu felt bad when Guy said that his battery was almost dead, and he didn't have much time left. The tension rises as the AI tells Amu that Guy hears someone approaching. Soon after, a man and a woman appear, finding Amu standing near the remnants of the AMAIM. Casually, Amu responds that he just happened to be there. The man gives Amu a sharp look and says that some people have been looking for AMAIM parts around that area. According to him, a group of boys around Amu's age had been seen digging up AMAIM remains from the border war that once occurred. After verifying Amu's ID, Amu introduces himself calmly. But suddenly, they capture him and start searching his bag thoroughly. However, they don't find anything suspicious. Seeing nothing wrong, they finally let Amu go but issue a stern warning not to return to the area, especially at night. After they leave, Amu feels a bit relieved and immediately meets up with the AI named Guy. Amu thanks Guy for warning him earlier about the approaching people. Thanks to the warning, Amu managed to hide the AMAIM parts he was carrying. Guy then explains that it was a warning from Don, and afterward, Guy asks Amu for help in return. Without a second thought, Amu takes Guy to an old maintenance workshop that now serves as his hiding place. The spot is very secluded, and that's where Amu stores the AMAIM parts he's collected. Upon arriving, Amu shows an AMAIM to Guy and says that if the plug fits, Guy can recharge himself. Guy is surprised and begins asking Amu many questions, curious if Amu built the AMAIM himself. Amu just smiles and explains that he assembled it himself from found parts, though main components like the frame were already there. Amu also shares how he once got lost in the mountains and accidentally stumbled upon the old workshop. He immediately liked the atmosphere, especially since many tools and equipment, although old, were still usable. After days of trying various random codes, the workshop door finally opened, and Amu found the AMAIM inside. However, the AMAIM had an unusual cockpit, and wasn't equipped with a full control system or equipment. Even so, Amu managed to make it work using available parts, though the biggest challenge he faced was figuring out how to boot up the AMAIM's main system, especially concerning the battery. Guy, listening intently to Amu's story, realizes that this is why Amu often goes to the mountains, to look for parts needed for the AMAIM while avoiding scavengers also searching for remains from the border war. Guy then asks, "What will you do once this machine is fully operational?" But before Amu can answer, Guy starts going on and on about the border war, making Amu annoyed. Amu finally tells Guy to be quiet, plugs him into the charger in the shop, and then leaves. Once fully charged, Guy's system functions well again, and he begins thinking about how to repay the AMAIM, planning something that could surprise Amu. 3 days pass, and Amu starts thinking about Guy, wondering what he's up to now that he's fully charged. In the next scene, we see soldiers capture 3 of Amu's friends caught stealing parts from Aman, adding more tension to an already mysterious story. Suddenly, Guy calls Amu and urgently asks him to come to the workshop. Amu heads there immediately, but unfortunately, his friends had already told the soldiers everything. They arrive at the workshop right after Amu leaves but manage to trace his computer activity. Upon arriving at the workshop, Amu is shocked to see his AMAIM. Guy has fully repaired it, even better than before. But the surprise doesn't end there. Through the CCTV camera, Amu sees the soldiers already entering the workshop, complete with microphones to make an announcement. "Amu, we have you surrounded. There's no way out," a voice echoes from the loudspeaker. Amu briefly considers surrendering and coming out, but Guy stops him. "If you go out, they'll capture you, and your life will be ruined, Guy says calmly but firmly. Guy then explains about the AMAIM's incredible capabilities. The chances of success might be 1 in 100, even 1 in 10, but Guy is confident he can make it happen. You saved my life, so I'll always be by your side, says Guy. Meanwhile, the soldiers start shooting at the workshop, forcing Amu to act quickly. Without hesitation, Amu climbs into the AMAIM, and the system immediately begins analyzing his brain. This allows Amu to control the AMAIM directly through his thoughts. Guy adds that the AMAIM, called Kenbu, will protect him no matter what. Close your eyes for 2 seconds, instructs Guy. As Amu closes his eyes, Guy uses the moment to calibrate his vision position, creating a virtual avatar that makes communication between them easier. Amu finally activates the AMAIM and steps out of the workshop, surprising the soldiers and his friends. Without wasting time, Amu and his AMAIM engage in an intense battle against the soldiers' robots. The soldiers are amazed to see the AMAIM in action, but soon the military robots begin to surround him, attacking from all sides. Amu feels nervous, but Guy encourages him, telling him to trust his instincts. With Guy's support, Amu regains his confidence and starts taking down the robots one by one. The battle grows more intense, with the military team and their advanced robots working together flawlessly. They manage to destroy several regular AMAIMs, but Amu and Kenbu continue to hold their ground. After the mission is completed, a team member approaches the captain, proudly showing him a photo of the manned AMAIM, saying, "This is a human-controlled AMAIM, Captain." On the other side of the battlefield, Amu is desperately fleeing from the Oceania military's pursuit. Just as they are about to catch him, the Oceania soldiers approach with weapons drawn, warning Amu that if he doesn't surrender, they'll kill his 3 friends. The tense situation has everyone holding their breath. Suddenly, Guy speaks in a cold tone, saying that his friends aren't that important, that they're just tools to help him find AMAIM parts. His words shock everyone. Guy then sharply exposes the hypocrisy of the situation, accusing the Oceania military of supporting real terrorists while wrongly capturing innocent people. Both the soldiers and Amu's friends fall silent, stunned by the revelation. Taking advantage of this brief moment of confusion, Amu quickly escapes with his AMAIM and Guy. In the next scene, we see a calm night setting. Amu, exhausted but determined, is tirelessly working on repairing his damaged AMAIM. Feeling weary, Amu checks his phone and is disappointed to see wanted posters with his face and name displayed everywhere. The world now views him as a dangerous terrorist. A heavy sadness surrounds him as he sits in silence, eventually falling asleep, worn out by the weight of his troubles. The next morning, Amu and Guy sit together, thinking about their strategy for the next step. Guy talks about the nearby sea, suggesting that if they can cross it, they might escape from the approaching Asian military forces. After a long discussion, Guy goes into sleep mode to rest. Amu then goes for a walk and finds a vast field filled with fresh vegetables. Hungry and exhausted, Amu decides to hide his AMAIM behind some large leaves before entering the field to grab some vegetables. As he begins to eat, the field owner suddenly appears, startling Amu, who immediately apologizes repeatedly, afraid of being punished. To his surprise, the owner is kind-hearted. Instead of getting angry, the owner offers Amu a deal, saying that if he helps with the farming, he'll give him food in return. Grateful for the offer, Amu immediately agrees. He then works alongside the farmer, helping in the field. After finishing his work, the field owner gave Amu some fresh tomatoes, which he eagerly devoured. That evening, the field owner invited Amu to his modest home. There, his wife warmly welcomed Amu, even washing his clothes and preparing a delicious dinner. As Amu enjoyed his meal, memories of his home and family flooded his mind, making him deeply emotional and nostalgic for the happy times at home. Suddenly, the sound from the television in the background broke the atmosphere. The latest news broadcast announced that Amu was now a fugitive, labeled as a terrorist. The couple quickly realized that their guest was the wanted person on the news. Amu, frightened, prepared to face their reaction. However, instead of being afraid or angry, the field owners shared a sad story about their son, Jenkamaru. The field owner explained that Jenkamaru had once promised to carry on the family's fishing business, but unfortunately, Jenkamaru was killed in a deadly shootout during the border war. Since losing his son, the father had stopped fishing altogether. With a heavy voice, the field owner said that he didn't care what had happened to Amu or why Amu was wanted. "What matters is that you are still alive," he said quietly. "For the first time in a long time, someone showed kindness by apologizing and helping out in the field. I believe you are a good-hearted young man." The field owner also reassured Amu that he could trust them completely. However, as the atmosphere began to calm, tension resurfaced. A friend of the field owner, who happened to be the local police officer, suddenly called unexpectedly. The officer asked if everything was alright at home. Feeling worried, Amu quickly hid, fearing the worst. Fortunately, after a brief conversation, the officer left without further incident. That night, while everyone was still asleep, Amu woke up early. He knew he couldn't stay any longer. With a heavy heart, Amu wrote a letter to the family who had been so kind to him, apologizing and explaining the reason he had to leave. In the letter, Amu said he would take their boat and suggested they say Amu threatened them if anyone came asking. As Amu and Guy sailed away on the stolen boat, guilt began to haunt Amu. He felt bad for betraying the kindness of the family who had helped him. However, their peaceful escape didn't last long. Suddenly, the sound of engines filled the air, and Amu's heart sank as he realized they had been surrounded by military forces from Asia and Oceania. Panic started to overwhelm him. In the midst of the panic, Guy remained calm. He encouraged Amu to fight back and helped boost his confidence. Hearing Guy's words, Amu gathered his courage and engaged in battle, skillfully controlling his AMAIM. The military personnel watching from afar seemed stunned, seeing how agile and powerful the AMAIM Amu controlled was. However, just as they were on the verge of victory, military reinforcements arrived, overwhelming Amu with a greater number of enemies. Amu desperately tried to escape, but one of the enemies managed to shoot his leg, causing him to stumble. In an instant, 4 or 5 enemy robots swarmed Amu's AMAIM, mercilessly firing upon it. Just when all hope seemed lost, a gunshot was heard from a distance. A mysterious boy, controlling another AMAIM, arrived to rescue Amu. The arrival of the second AMAIM shocked the military forces. They quickly ordered their robots to attack, but the second AMAIM swiftly fired back, destroying all the enemy robots. Afterward, the boy provided a code and instructed Amu to come to his location right away, assuring him that he would protect Amu's AMAIM. Suddenly, thick smoke filled the area, obscuring the military's view. Taking advantage of the moment, Amu managed to escape. Not long after, Amu met the boy, and they introduced themselves to each other. While introducing Guy heard a female AI voice other than his own. Guy explained that there was an autonomous female AI inside the same AIM. The AI introduced herself as Kay and mentioned that their AMAIM was named Jugan, and the boy's name was Tezuka Gashin. Gashin then asked about the underground tunnel they were in, and Kay explained that the tunnel was an abandoned railway system from before the war boundaries, which allowed them to travel safely without being detected. Amu, curious, asked Gashin where he had found that AMAIM. Gashin simply called Amu a fool and explained that he was an AMAIM pilot from Japan, fighting against the military as part of Yatagarasu, a group aiming to reclaim Japan. Jokingly, Gashin remarked that the people of Yatagarasu were the real terrorists, and Amu, curious, asked where they were taking him. Gashin replied that they were taking him to their base. Upon arriving there, some of the boys at the base immediately recognized Amu. "Isn't that Amu?" Shiba, one of them, asked in amazement. A girl named Risa Kozaki then approached Amu and took him to meet their boss. Their boss, Goken Kamai, the leader of 2 special forces in Yatagarasu, introduced himself to Amu. With a serious tone, Goken immediately asked if Amu had any accomplices, how he came across the AMAIM, and what the code was for the autonomous AI connected to his AMAIM. At that moment, Amu's AI, Guy, introduced himself. Goken then asked if he was the one who created Guy. Amu explained that he found Guy in the forest, and then assembled the AMAIM using parts from an abandoned facility in the mountains. "I have no accomplices," he added. However, Goken seemed doubtful about the story and questioned its truthfulness. Amu insisted, explaining that it was Guy who modified the cockpit so he could enter. Goken then stated that the AMAIM should belong to them since one of their supporters provided it. Although the design development was different, Goken pointed out that the AMAIM model was similar to Gashin's, named Jugan. Amu mentioned that his AMAIM was a male model, and Goken confirmed it. Goken also explained that they had sent parts for the Kenbu male model to their branch in Shikoku, but the branch fell before they could send a pilot with a combat AI. Guy, growing suspicious, asked what Goken's true intentions were. "Are you going to claim ownership of this AMAIM?" he asked sharply. Goken calmly replied, "Even though that's not a bad idea, it wouldn't be fair to you and Guy." Goken then offered Amu the chance to join them. Nervously, Amu asked if this meant he was joining a terrorist group. Goken assured him that they were not terrorists but a resistance group that never harmed unarmed people. Feeling embarrassed, Amu apologized for calling them terrorists. Goken expressed his interest in Amu's strength, especially after seeing how Amu and Guy managed to control Kenbu and win 2 battles. However, Amu felt uncertain and asked, "Does this mean I have to kill?" This question immediately triggered a reaction from Gashin, who insisted that the AMAIM was not a toy but a weapon. Gashin then showed images depicting the brutal treatment of the Japanese people. "Why are you still hesitant to use your power to save them?" he asked in frustration. Frustrated by the lack of response from Amu, Gashin left in anger. Goken then apologized for Gashin's behavior, explaining that Gashin's father once dreamed of restoring Japan, but he had passed away. Now Gashin bore the responsibility of fulfilling his father's dream. Goken offered Amu a choice. If he didn't want to join them, they could help him return to civilian life and change his name. However, in return, Amu would have to return the AMAIM. After that, Amu sat alone, appearing deep in thought. Risa approached, offering an ear if he wanted to talk. Curious, Amu asked Risa why she decided to join the resistance. Risa shared a dark story about her family, who died in a car accident caused by the Asian military, which then used extraterritorial rights to evade justice. Since then, she felt alone and full of hatred toward the military. Amu then admitted that his parents died of illness, and he initially piloted the AMAIM just for fun. However, he felt uncertain if he could truly fight well. Risa then revealed that the leaders and other members had asked her to convince him to join. But gently, she said, if you were my brother, I wouldn't ask you to join the military. Take care of yourself. The next scene shows Gokun, the group leader, discussing the upcoming Asian military attack plan with his members. In the middle of the conversation, Gokun asked Risa, will Amu join us? However, Risa could only answer hesitantly, I'm not sure. The next morning, Gashin began training Amu to become a stronger pilot. Elsewhere, the girl responsible for repairing Amu's AMAIM showed Guy that the repairs were successful. Guy looked very happy seeing the advancements in the AMAIM. Every day, Gashin trained Amu relentlessly. In between training sessions, Amu often visited his AMAIM, amazed at how rapidly the technology was advancing. One day, Risa took him to the river to relax. While enjoying the fresh air, Risa told Amu that tomorrow they would depart for Hiroshima. Will you come with us? Risa asked. Amu agreed, and Risa looked very happy to hear it. Feeling increasingly confident in his choice, Amu then asked Guy, do you agree with my decision? Guy responded with full approval. The next day, Amu inspected his AMAIM again and was surprised by the significant improvements. Shortly after, Gashin arrived with a new idea. How about we swap AMAIMs for battle? He suggested. They fought together, but it ended in a tie. Suddenly, an explosion was heard from their base. A large AMAIM had appeared and was causing chaos. Without hesitation, the AMAIM went on a rampage, and the chief nearly lost his life if not for Amu's quick intervention. However, Gashin, acting faster with his Jugun, managed to stop the AMAIM's attack. To create a diversion, Risa shot at the AMAIM, but unfortunately, the AMAIM retaliated by attacking Risa's vehicle. Blood was everywhere, and Risa's necklace fell to the ground, marking that Risa had died instantly from the attack. Seeing Risa's death, Amu was deeply shaken. The unknown AMAIM then tried to attack Amu's Kenbu, but Gashin quickly charged in with his AMAIM to protect Amu. Filled with rage, Gashin remembered that this unknown AMAIM was the same one that had killed his father. Overflowing with anger, Gashin began attacking the AMAIM relentlessly. However, Amu quickly stopped Gashin. Together with Kei, they tried to calm Gashin, who was too overcome by emotion. Gokun then instructed Amu and Gashin to work together against this unknown AMAIM. As the situation started to calm down, Guy asked Kei which AMAIM is this. Kei answered, this is an unnamed, unidentified AMAIM, and its allegiance is also unknown. Kei also added that this AMAIM often appeared suddenly and attacked without warning. Even the Asian and North American militaries have fallen victim, Kei added. They call it a ghost. Amu then asked Gashin if we can face this AMAIM together. Gashin firmly replied, we must, and we must defeat it too. However, before they could strategize further, the unknown AMAIM suddenly began attacking Amu's AMAIM relentlessly. At the same time, Gashin started shooting at the AMAIM, but it quickly picked up a weapon and fired back. Everyone was shocked to see how an AMAIM could wield human weapons so skillfully. Kei, witnessing the incident, said in a serious tone, this AMAIM has another ability. It can use any weapon and attach any AMAIM parts to its body. Then, Chief Misuzu called for Amu and Gashin to get their weapons. Gashin quickly fired at the AMAIM, creating a smoke cloud that disrupted its vision. Amu and Gashin took advantage of the moment to rush to Misuzu and retrieve their weapons. However, before they could regain their composure, the AMAIM attacked them suddenly once again. Kei, observing the situation, said if we can truly understand this AMAIM's strength, we can defeat it easily. Hearing that, Amu and Gashin collaborated more effectively, working together to face the AMAIM's attacks with a more refined strategy. The situation fell silent. Everyone thought the AMAIM had been destroyed. But suddenly, the AMAIM moved swiftly toward Amu, hiding behind him and using Amu's Kenbu as a shield to attack Gashin. Quickly, the AMAIM grabbed Kenbu and began generating heat from within, making the situation even more tense. Gokun and his team immediately fired at the AMAIM from behind, forcing it to flee. Gashin, seeing the AMAIM escape, looked furious. He felt frustrated for not being able to avenge his father's death. Kei tried to calm him down, saying, next time, we'll definitely avenge your father. After the battle, the leader and the resistance team decided to check their headquarters. Before leaving, they asked Amu and Gashin to stay on guard at the camp. While they were left behind, Amu saw Risa's necklace lying on the ground. His thoughts immediately turned to Risa, and he couldn't hold back his tears. The sound of his crying echoed through the camp, pouring out his deep sadness. That night, the scene shifted to the arrival of the Asian military captain and his partner at the terrorist camp. However, when they arrived, the camp was already empty. The captain inspected the area carefully and realized that the terrorists had left no trace. Even so, from the signs of damage around, the captain concluded that a major battle had taken place there, involving the ghost AMAIM and two AMAIMs from the terrorist group. Meanwhile, we see Amu still lost in grief over Risa's death. Kei, Guy, and even Gashin looked deeply troubled by the incident. Risa's death left a deep scar in all their hearts. Meanwhile, the military returned to their base and began examining the Japanese terrorists' AMAIM system. They were shocked by their findings. It turned out that the Japanese terrorists had managed to add advanced technology to their AMAIMs, even more advanced than Asia's Neuron and Oceania's Brady Hound. The military realized they would need to strengthen their own robots if they wanted to compete with this new force. The next morning, Amu and Gashin were walking toward the headquarters, but Amu's mood seemed heavy. His face was filled with deep sadness. Unexpectedly, Amu stopped and told Gashin that he would no longer join the resistance. Hearing this, Gashin simply nodded, as if he understood. "If you don't want to join, I won't force you," he said calmly. Amu even offered his kenbu to him, something that meant a lot to Gashin. As Gashin started to walk away, Amu gently said, "Take care, okay, don't get hurt." Gashin turned and asked, "So, you're afraid of dying?" He then added, "I'm afraid of dying too. But that fear doesn't make me back down." Amu replied seriously, "It's not dying that I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of losing the people close to me." Gashin explained that if Amu joined the resistance, he would meet new people, become friends, and then have to watch them go to war. If someone died in front of him, Amu felt he wouldn't be able to handle it. Gashin heard that in silence before continuing on his way. After Gashin left, Amu hid Kenbu in the river, then sent the location code of Kenbu to Gashin before deciding to set off. The next scene shows Amu buying food at a store. Guy suddenly approached him and asked, "So, what's your plan now?" Amu replied that he would return Risa's necklace to her family, but he needed to find out their address. Guy, who always seemed to be ready with all kinds of information, told him that he had already found Risa's family's address by tracking the location of their accident. Amu was very grateful to Guy for always being there to help. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the military was torturing some innocent Japanese people, accusing them of being terrorists. On the other hand, Deputy Governor Liu and his partner were talking about how public order had improved since Liu became deputy governor. His partner commented that more Japanese rebels would either die or disappear. Liu simply responded coldly, "They're just prey." Back to Amu, he followed the directions from Guy and went to the address given. However, Amu had difficulty finding Risa's family's house. A man named Hiroto approached and asked who he was looking for. When Amu mentioned Risa's name, Hiroto invited him to walk along while explaining that Risa's parents had passed away long ago, and Risa joined the resistance after her family became victims of oppression sanctioned by the deputy governor. Houses were destroyed, and many families were forced to flee. Hearing this story, Amu became more anxious and asked where they went. Hiroto took Amu to a private place where many people wanted to hear stories about Risa. They arrived at a small restaurant, a place where Risa's childhood friends shared fond memories of their school days before Risa decided to join the resistance. When they asked about Risa, Amu, with a heavy heart, told them that Risa had passed away. Sadness filled the room, but they thanked Amu for bringing news about their friend. Amu then explained how kind and protective Risa was toward others and that he wanted to return Risa's necklace to her family's grave. An old woman, Mrs. Namba, the shop owner, told Amu that she knew the location of Risa's family grave. Hearing that, Amu felt relieved and happy. They then spent the evening together with a simple dinner. After dinner, Hiroto and his daughter Hina were on their way home when a luxurious car suddenly stopped in front of them. Inside the car sat Deputy Governor Liu. In a threatening tone, Liu warned Hiroto about the wine spill incident that had stained his uniform, emphasizing that there would be serious consequences for Hiroto. Meanwhile, the Asian military continued to enhance their robot technology to capture AMAIM terrorists, including the notorious AMAIM Ghost. The next morning, shocking rumors began to spread. Hiroto and Hina had disappeared. Many assumed they had been taken by Deputy Governor Liu. People began to mobilize, planning to confront this situation. Elsewhere, Gashin told Goken that Amu had decided not to join their resistance group. Goken seemed understanding and said, "It's fine, we have a new member, a girl with an AMAIM, who has joined us." Meanwhile, Hiroto's friends gathered outside the department building where Deputy Governor Liu was giving a speech about Hina's sale. Angry citizens tried to break in. Amid the chaos, the deputy governor thought to himself, feeling as if he had found a golden opportunity to exploit. On the other hand, Risa's friends started to worry about the escalating situation. Nishimura called Mrs. Namba, warning her that anti-government security forces had arrested some people and might soon target their families. In this tense moment, Guy assured them that they could arrive within 5 minutes if anything happened. Feeling powerless, Mrs. Namba finally gave in. With a heavy heart, she handed Amu a map to Risa's family grave. "You need to go now," she said regretfully. Mrs. Namba apologized for not being able to accompany Amu personally. After receiving the map, Amu immediately rushed off. Meanwhile, we see the anti-government forces begin capturing more people. One of the men arrested shouted that they were all innocent, but the ruthless deputy governor shot him in the hand, giving a stern warning to the others. Amu watched all this chaos through his device. Guilt and fear started to consume him, but Guy quickly reassured him. "I will support whatever decision you make," he said confidently. Amu returned to the river where he had hidden Kenbu, and without hesitation, he got inside. That night, the anti-government forces prepared to execute Mr. Namba and 11 others. However, Amu arrived with his Kenbu, destroyed the attacking Nuren units, and confronted Deputy Governor Liu directly. With a mocking tone, Amu asked the Deputy Governor, "How does it feel to be attacked by a force you can't handle?" Amu then exposed the Deputy Governor's involvement in human trafficking. At the same time, Guy spread all the evidence of the Deputy Governor's crimes worldwide, putting him in an even more desperate position. "If you oppress the Japanese people again," Amu threatened, "Kenbu will destroy you." The Japanese citizens, filled with joy, quickly moved to free Hiroto and his daughter. They thanked Amu and Kenbu for their heroic actions. Afterward, Amu went to visit Risa's family grave. There, he placed Risa's necklace, marking the end of his journey. Once that task was completed, Amu returned to Gashin. In the final scene, we see a girl lost in thought, reflecting on her past life. She remembered her grandfather, who used to be a potter with a kiln. However, everything changed when the Asian military destroyed the kiln. Since then, her grandfather fell into depression, and they could do nothing to fight back. That day, the girl made a silent vow that someday, she would bring back the Heino items. Meanwhile, Gashin and Amu were reporting to Chief Misuzu about the damage to their AMAIM. Kei and Guy suggested self-charging, but Misuzu explained that she couldn't repair the AMAIM from such a distance. Misuzu advised them to hide their AMAIM and share the location code with her. After cheering up Kei and Guy, Gashin and Amu continued their journey to Pashi City and booked a hotel. When they arrived, the hotel owner immediately reminded them to shower due to their rather strong body odor. Hearing that, they both felt embarrassed and quickly hurried to bathe. Once they were clean, they enjoyed a meal to fill their stomachs. Elsewhere, the military was watching the video of Kenbu threatening the deputy governor. As they watched, the atmosphere was full of excitement, and the captain suggested they should jump into battle soon. The captain started planning to blame the Asian military for all of this. One of the soldiers then proposed that they attack the AFT territory and make it part of their brigade. Next, we see Amu and Gashin sitting on a bus, on their way to a certain place. During the journey, Gashin revealed that Japan was now under AFT control, and the country was in a very bad state. However, Gashin assured Amu that one day, everything would be set right. They stopped at a drink shop, where the shop owner refused to serve them drinks because they looked too young. Gashin quickly gave the shop owner a signal, and once the man realized they were with Misuzu, he handed them a box containing items they could use to repair their AMAIM. Meanwhile, the Oceanian army launched an attack on AFT territory, sparking a fierce battle between the Oceanian and AFT forces. The Oceanian military platoon easily destroyed AFT's Nuren units and began killing Japanese civilians. Amid the chaos, Guy and Kei came up with a brilliant idea. They hacked all phones, TVs, and computers in Japan to guide people to safe locations. We see Kei and Guy swiftly hacking these devices, beginning to direct people to safer places. Gradually, more and more people followed their directions, although there was still much to be cautious about. Amu then told Gashin that they also had to help Kei and Guy, and they could use Kenbu and Jogan to stop the battle. However, Gashin replied, "Amu, our AMAIMs aren't in a condition to fight right now. Besides, the location is too far. It would take a long time to get there." In an angry tone, Amu said, "So we're just going to let all this happen?" Gashin responded, "Are you happy seeing all this too? We wouldn't be able to do anything, even if we wanted to." Then, members of the AFT region realized that the situation was getting worse. Their captain warned that the main target of the Oceanian military was the local command center, and that place had to be protected at all costs. They had 2 units, so if anything happened there, they could activate the Oceanian military's tabis to face the threat. In the midst of the chaos, the AFT members who had gathered and hidden the Japanese people saw the Oceanian military platoon approaching. Just as the platoon was ready to attack, an AMAIM named Reiki appeared, quickly destroying the platoon one by one. Seeing this, the Oceanian military was caught in a very disadvantageous position. Reiki seemed astonished by his own power, not only destroying the platoon but also taking down the AFT and Nuren regions. Seeing all this, both the Oceanian military and the AFT team halted their battle, shocked by what had just happened. Then, the entire Japanese community expressed their gratitude and appreciation to the AMAIM named Renkei. After all the commotion, Amu and Gashin returned to their AMAIMs. Along the way, they happened to meet Renkei. Renkei started mocking Amu and Gashin, which made Gashin so angry that he retorted with an insult. After that, Renkei introduced himself as an Italian man who disliked men but liked women. Renkei added that now he would introduce them to his daughter. Shortly after, a girl stepped out of the AMAIM, and it turned out that his daughter was the girl whose grandfather was a pottery maker, whose kiln was destroyed by the military. As soon as she came out, tears began to flow down her face. The scene shifts, and we see the crying girl introduce herself. She reveals her name is Cheyenne and apologizes to everyone for suddenly crying, explaining that it was her first battle, and she was very nervous. Cheyenne also admits that she was able to fight well thanks to the AI assisting her. Beside her, Gashin is curious about what kind of girl Cheyenne is, to the point where she cried right after her first battle. Amo then praises Cheyenne, saying her moves during the fight were incredible. Cheyenne replies that she took Nijanata lessons as a child. Initially, she was only a supporter of the resistance group, but her AI sparked her fighting spirit and greatly helped her in battle. Her AI, Neyuta, adds that Cheyenne has excellent foresight. This makes things a bit tense between Guy, Kay, and Neyuta. In the next scene, we see Captain Brad and Officer Raymond setting off to meet with the main captain of the Asian military. When they arrive, the main captain explains that he specifically called them because his intelligence team has discovered Ghost. These people already know that Ghost is a mysterious AMAIM. All its systems are unidentifiable, and no military from North America, Asia, Eurasia, or Oceania has been able to capture this AMAIM. So, the main captain says they need help to capture or destroy Ghost. It turns out the main captain is actually Brad's father. After the meeting, Brad and Raymond leave, and on their way, they stop at a shop to buy some food. The shop owner kindly gives them more food than they paid for. Brad, curious, asks why the owner gave them extra food. The owner replies that it's their way of showing respect, just a small gesture because they're protecting Japan. After eating, Brad and Raymond continue on their journey. As they walk, Brad comments, "Are all the people in Japan blind? Or are they just turning a blind eye to take over Japan?" Raymond then asks, "Are you against it?" Brad ignores the question and instead tells Raymond to eat. After finishing their meal, they head out again, and along the way, Brad tells Raymond that he was actually adopted. Brad shares that his family didn't really care about him until one day when his father took him to their base camp. There, as he saw all the AMAIMs, Brad got so excited that he unknowingly fell asleep while trying to figure out how to control them. On that same day, the Spears family adopted him. Raymond then asks if that's why he prefers manned AMAIMs. Brad replies that he isn't sure, but it definitely made Yupa an integral part of him. Meanwhile, we see Cheyenne, Amu, and Gashin talking about AMAIM and various strategies. Meanwhile, two North American soldiers, Roger and Sophia, meet with Brad and Raymond. Sophia expresses doubts about the mission, revealing that she doesn't support it because capturing the Ghost AMAIM could be extremely dangerous. However, Brad assures her that this is a secret mission, and only the best military personnel were chosen for the task. The next morning, very early, Gashin, Amu, and Shin leave the hotel to return to their base. Meanwhile, Brad, Raymond, Roger, and Sophia set out to capture the Ghost AMAIM. They set up traps to lure the Ghost, and as the Ghost AMAIM appears, they deploy their own AMAIMs to engage in battle. As the battle begins, they are shocked to see the Ghost AMAIM is incredibly powerful and seemingly invincible. The Ghost AMAIM easily destroys their AMAIMs one by one, leaving the soldiers stunned by its strength and speed. Despite that, they didn't want to give up and united to shoot at the Ghost AMAIM with all the power they had. However, the Ghost AMAIM hijacked their fighter jets, and the jets turned around to attack them. In the middle of the chaos, the Ghost AMAIM destroyed Roger's AMAIM and killed him. Brad quickly came up with a plan. He suggested that they work together to fight the Ghost AMAIM. Although their jets were attacked, the three soldiers managed to destroy the jets attacking them. Then, they all started firing at the Ghost AMAIM. Brad managed to land a direct hit on its chest, and they were sure this time they could finally defeat it. However, suddenly a plane flew in, and the Ghost AMAIM fled. Seeing this, Brad's anger reached its peak, and he swore that one day, he would kill the Ghost AMAIM. On the other hand, Amu, Gashin, and Cheyenne arrived at the resistance base and immediately met with the leader of Yatagarasu, Uda Kiryu. There, Kiryu introduced them to a representative from Brion Crop named German Gobert. Gobert was the type of person who saw opportunities in every situation, even war. Gobert planned to start a profitable business with them. Gobert then explained that his company could provide all the war necessities. If they needed anything, Gobert was ready to help. At that moment, Gobert brought new armor designed to enhance their combat abilities. Not only that, but he also showcased some advanced weapons and high-tech components for their AMAIMs. With these upgrades, Amu felt more confident, imagining how efficient he would be in battle with the new gear. However, not long after, Kiryu received an emergency call. The next morning, they headed to an old village that had been destroyed 20 years ago. The village had once been prosperous, but now it was nothing but ruins, a painful reminder of the destruction brought by war. There, they met Fudo Yuji, the elderly head of the Fudo family. Yuji shared how his family survived under harsh conditions without basic necessities. While they were talking, a little girl named Riko suddenly ran up to Gashin and called him Dad. They looked surprised, but Yuji explained that Riko's biological father had passed away when she was very young. This moment was both bittersweet, revealing the emotional scars left by the war. Kiryu then asked Yuji why they were still living in such a remote place with no electricity, water, or food. Yuji replied that their home was destroyed during the war, and they had no choice but to survive on this land, holding tightly to the remnants of the past. Hearing this story, the Yatagarasu group decided to help the Fudo family. They promised to stay for a few days to assist in rebuilding the village and improving the living conditions there.
Amu felt relieved to be able to help in a different way, one that didn't involve fighting. Gashin assured him that Yatagarasu's mission wasn't just about war, but also about helping those who had lost everything due to the conflict. The next morning, Yatagarasu held a strategic meeting. Goken suggested that they be divided into 3 teams, one to build a well, another to construct a watermill, and the last to create farmland for sustainable agriculture. They immediately started the work, determined to restore a sense of normalcy in the lives of the Fudo family. Meanwhile, Kiryu was negotiating with the German government to purchase vital supplies that would aid in the recovery efforts in Japan. That evening, a peaceful atmosphere settled as the Yatagarasu members and the Fudo family gathered together for a meal after a long day's work. The Fudo family was deeply moved by the help they received, expressing their heartfelt gratitude to Yatagarasu, who had brought hope for their future. In the following days, the Yatagarasu members continued to work hard. Shion led the project to build a much-needed clinic, while the others continued their tasks. Shion even took time to teach the children how to make clay crafts, giving them simple entertainment amidst the difficult situation. However, when the team inspecting the power supply found that its capacity was still insufficient, another group trying to drill for water ran into trouble when their machine broke down. Undeterred, Misuzu, a tough leader, stepped in and took over the drilling task until she hit the bedrock. Guy, Kei, and Nayuta then joined in to solve the problem using a laser and pile bunker. Amu, full of enthusiasm, took on the role of hitting the bedrock with the pile bunker with high precision. After several attempts, water finally burst from the ground. This success was met with cheers from everyone present. The water they found was not only to meet daily needs, but also to irrigate the farmland, helping the Fudo family become more self-sufficient. Finally, after checking the electricity once more, they found that the power in the Fudo family's colony had been restored. A sense of relief and happiness immediately filled the air. Everyone, from the Yatagarasu members to the Fudo family, celebrated this achievement. The Fudo family expressed their sincere gratitude to the Yatagarasu group, as this help had given them new hope and a future worth fighting for. With electricity and water restored, the future of the Fudo family looked brighter. Their hope was reborn. That night, they all gathered again for a celebratory dinner. The atmosphere was filled with stories, laughter, and pride because they had made a real difference in someone else's life. A sense of unity and accomplishment filled the room as they looked to the future with optimism. In the next scene, we see Gashin deep in his own thoughts. Gashin started to question the decisions he had made. Had he continued making mistakes? Would he repeat them in the future? As Gashin pondered, the scene shifted to Amu, Shion, and Gashin, shopping for supplies to help their team. As they left the store, Gashin heard someone calling his name. When he turned around, he saw a man who turned out to be his older brother, Suenaga Yusei. Gashin was very surprised, but also filled with happiness as they reunited after so long. This reunion was truly unexpected. They talked for a long time, and Gashin's broad smile was impossible to hide. Seeing the joy, Amu commented that he had never seen Gashin this happy before. Kei added that Yusei used to live with the family in Yatagarasu, but after their parents died in battle, Gashin's father took on the responsibility of raising them. 3 years ago, Yusei left Yatagarasu without saying goodbye, leaving Gashin in deep sadness. After a long conversation, Yusei said goodbye and asked for Gashin's contact before leaving. Gashin, Amu, and Shion returned to headquarters, where Gashin immediately told Kiryu and Goken about his meeting with Yusei. Later, Gashin went into his room and looked at an old photo showing him, Yusei, and their father. Kei commented that the photo was taken when Gashin and Yusei got lost in the mountains. Gashin smiled as he recalled that day when he was scared, but Yusei assured him that he would always protect him, no matter what. Even though they weren't related by blood, from that moment on, Gashin had considered Yusei his true brother. The next morning, Gashin was busy checking weapons and new components for his scope, making sure everything was functioning properly. That's when Misuzu approached him, asking for his opinion on the new weapons. Gashin briefly replied that the weapons were much better than before. At that moment, Gashin received a message from Yusei. The next scene showed Yusei taking Gashin, Amu, and Shion to a certain place. Amu, curious, asked where they were going. Yusei calmly answered that he would show them the city he built for the people. When they arrived at the city, Yusei began to explain that this was a small, autonomous city inhabited by about 3,400 people. And interestingly, there were no AFT members here. Even more surprising, Yusei was the mayor of this city. The three of them were truly shocked by this revelation. As they walked around the city, they were warmly greeted by friendly and welcoming residents. Yusei explained that his main dream was to protect this city. However, he wanted to take a different path from Yatagarasu. If Yatagarasu focused on combat, Yusei chose to create something more peaceful. Now his dream was to expand this autonomous city even further. Suddenly someone called for Yusei, and he had to leave for a moment. But before that, he told Gushin, Amu, and Shayan to freely explore the city. As they strolled around, several shop owners approached them and asked if they were friends of the mayor. Without hesitation, the shop owners offered them a variety of delicious foods and other items. While enjoying the snacks, Gushin received another message from Yusei. This time, Yusei invited him to meet again. In that meeting, Yusei asked Gushin to leave Yatagarasu and join him in realizing the vision of expanding the city. Yusei also gave Gushin time to consider this big decision. That night, Gushin stood alone on the rooftop, lost in thought, when Gobert suddenly approached him. Gobert brought shocking news. He accused Yusei of being a spy for the Asian military. Hearing this, Gushin was extremely surprised. Gobert continued, saying that Yusei was collaborating with the Asian military to build the autonomous city, even receiving a lot of money from them. Gushin was upset hearing this accusation, but he decided not to believe Gobert right away. He didn't want to share this information with anyone and chose to reflect on it himself, recalling how Yusei had always been kind to him. Gushin was certain Yusei wouldn't do something foolish like that. The next day, Gushin decided to investigate the truth about Yusei. Was Yusei really a spy for the Asian military? As Gushin wandered around the autonomous city, he overheard a conversation revealing that the city was experiencing significant supply issues. At the same time, a group of Asian military personnel arrived in the city to meet with Yusei, discussing a certain plan. They told Yusei that he had to comply with them, and if everything went well, they would help further develop his autonomous city. Gushin, observing all of this through his phone, was shocked. Right after that, Yusei called him and asked to meet. They finally met at the Yatagarasu headquarters. There, Yusei explained everything to the Yatagarasu leaders, urging them to leave the area immediately for everyone's safety. Meanwhile, Shin and Amu approached Kei and Nayuta, asking if they knew the reason for Yusei's visit to their residence. Kei and Nayuta's faces looked anxious, and they said they didn't know what was really happening. Later, Nayuta finally revealed to Amu and Shayan that Yusei was actually a spy for the Asian military. This confession truly shocked both of them. On the other hand, Goken and Kiryu agreed to Yusei's request, reassuring him not to worry. They ensured that Yatagarasu would leave the area within 2 weeks. As Yusei was on his way home, his car suddenly broke down. Kiryu and Goken suggested that Yusei stay there for the night. That night, while everyone was resting, Yusei secretly tried to copy Yatagarasu's important data, planning to escape with the information. However, Gushin caught him. Calmly, Gushin revealed that he had known Yusei's plan from the beginning. He then told Yusei that Yatagarasu actually wouldn't leave in 2 weeks, but rather in just a few days. In fact, the data Yusei was trying to steal would be moved to a completely different location. The two of them were locked in a tense standoff, each pointing their weapons at the other. But after hearing Gushin's words, Yusei felt hopeless and decided to leave. Even though he had the chance, Gushin couldn't bring himself to shoot Yusei, letting his brother go without firing a single bullet. Some time later, we see Gushin, Amu, and Shion, who have relocated to a new place in Tohoku. They are trying to adapt to the new environment and prepare for the challenges ahead. Their minds still linger on the battle they just faced. But now there is a new determination growing to help those who have fought. Elsewhere, Mayor Zelenoy was enjoying his relaxing moment, confident in the power he held. However, his calm was quickly disrupted when Dahlia, one of his colleagues, warned him that his mission was far from over. Quickly, Dahlia ordered the Eurasian forces to attack Takeru's team, emphasizing how critical the situation was. The Eurasian forces, equipped with a superior number of soldiers and weapons, launched a fierce assault, crushing the remnants of Takeru's increasingly weakened forces. Just as Takeru's team began to falter, Gushin, Amu, and Shion arrived on the battlefield with their upgraded AMAIMs. The new weapons and stronger armor made a huge difference as they faced the Eurasian forces. With skill and precision, they dismantled the enemy's AMAIMs one by one, turning the tide of the battle. The extraordinary power of their AMAIMs provided a significant advantage, and little by little, they began to shift the battle in their favor. After a while, the Eurasian forces finally admitted defeat to Dahlia. On the other hand, Gobert was quietly observing the battle from afar, intrigued by the combat skills of Gushin, Amu, and Shion. Gobert seemed impressed by their seamless teamwork amid the chaos of the battlefield. After the battle ended, Takeru and the remaining members of his surviving forces introduced themselves to Gushin, Amu, and Shion. With heartfelt gratitude, Takeru explained that they were once part of a major organization in East Tohoku. But everything changed when Zelenoy took over. With his wealth, influence, and military power, Zelenoy managed to crush them, leaving only a handful who still stood. Takeru reminisced about their past as a strong group, but now they were merely struggling to survive. Moved by the story, Shion asked how they could help. Takeru then explained that their only hope was to break through the siege and reach the eastern side of the Yu Mountains. After hearing this, they immediately devised a strategy, splitting into several teams and planning each step carefully. With accurate observation support, they pinpointed the safest routes to avoid detection by the Eurasian forces, using crucial information to navigate the complex battlefield. Meanwhile, Dahlia and Zelenoy were engaged in an increasingly tense conversation. Zelenoy, with a firm resolve to prove himself, brushed off Dahlia's concerns. When Dahlia suggested that it might be too risky for him to enter the battlefield, Zelenoy responded casually, challenging whether Dahlia doubted his abilities. With great ambition, Zelenoy had only one goal: to claim victory in his own way, and he wouldn't let anyone stand in his path. On the other side, Takeru and his team, along with Xian, Amu, and Gashin, were preparing for the next confrontation. Nervousness filled the air, but their resolve was unshaken. The looks in their eyes gave each other encouragement, boosting their confidence to face the upcoming battle. When the battle began, Zelenoy immediately unleashed a powerful barrage, forcing Xian, Gashin, and Amu to dodge swiftly. The assault from the Eurasian military was deadly. They managed to destroy 2 AMAIMs from Takeru's team, putting them in a dire situation. Kei, thinking quickly, suggested that Gashin use a smokescreen to obscure the enemy's view, giving them a chance to counterattack. Meanwhile, Dahlia was orchestrating a strategy, ordering her troops to change their communication signals in 40 seconds, coordinating her team to surround the enemy and prepare for an all-out assault. However, in a sudden move, Takeru's team vanished from the battlefield only to reappear with a surprise counterattack. In a matter of minutes, they turned the tide, destroying the remaining Eurasian forces. Major Zelenoy, seeing defeat looming, finally surrendered. But before leaving, Zelenoy warned Takeru's team that even if they might forget what happened today, he would not. Zelenoy swore he would return and seek revenge, leaving a chilling threat of future conflict. After the battle ended, Takeru, with deep gratitude, presented gifts to Xian, Gashin, and Amu as a token of appreciation for their assistance. This moment of victory slightly lifted the mood, although the threat of Zelenoy's revenge still lingered in their minds. Once the mission was complete, Amu, Xian, and Gashin returned to their camp in Tohoku. They felt a sense of relief after such an intense battle. Upon arriving, they took the time to rest, meticulously cleaning their AMAIMs of dirt and battle remnants. On the other side, Gobert started a conversation with Brad, proposing an intriguing deal. Although they had tried to track down information about Gobert, their efforts failed, making Raymond even more suspicious. Raymond ordered his team to immediately cut off communication with Gobert. However, Gobert quickly responded, saying that he had an extraordinary business offer, claiming that he could reveal the location of the ghost AMAIM, something that shocked all 3 of them. Brad, surprised by the information, immediately asked how much money Gobert wanted in return. But Gobert's answer was even more mysterious. He was not interested in money, but something else, something he would explain later. Without further ado, Gobert suddenly cut off the call, leaving them confused and curious about his true intentions. Meanwhile, Kiryu was talking with one of his teammates about Amu, Xian, and Gashin. Kiryu reminded them that until the real base was ready, they had to remain vigilant and not let their guard down, even though the atmosphere seemed calm. He emphasized the importance of staying alert to any potential threats, especially during such a transition period. His team agreed, acknowledging the need for caution and remaining on standby while waiting for further instructions. In the next scene, Amu, Gashin, and Xian were seen cleaning their AMAIMs after the battle they had just gone through. While scrubbing dust and dirt off their armor, they discussed battle strategies and what could be improved in the future. Amidst the serious conversation, there was a playful catfight between Guy and Nayuta, adding a bit of lightheartedness amidst the tension. Their laughter brought a touch of cheerfulness and offered a break from the heavy situation. Elsewhere, the Eurasian military captain was discussing the recent battle with Zelenoy and Dahlia. They analyzed how the 3 AMAIMs could be so effective and decimate their forces. After reviewing the situation, they agreed that Zelenoy would need greater support in the next battle, possibly with additional air colonies to ensure victory. As they were getting ready to leave, Dahlia asked Zelenoy if he was truly sure about engaging in the battle again. Zelenoy, with full confidence, replied that he would not give up until he managed to conquer the AMAIMs. In the next scene, Goken was seen briefing Kiryu about the worsening situation in the AFT region. He detailed how chaos and instability were gradually taking over the area. Kiryu responded by sharing his views on the North American NAACC coalition and how they were impacting the autonomy of the Japanese people. The 2 of them had an extended conversation about the increasingly complex political dynamics, especially concerning how NAACC was starting to take control of the region and restricting Japan's freedom to govern itself. Their discussion also touched on the rising crime rates that accompanied NAACC's presence. Kiryu mentioned that crimes committed by NAACC personnel, such as exploitation and other illegal activities, were worsening the situation for the Japanese citizens. This conversation highlighted the growing tension between the local population and the foreign forces that controlled their region, and both Kiryu and Goken agreed that the issue needed to be addressed before things got further out of hand. Meanwhile, Gashin and Xian were seen engaged in an intense game. Xian nimbly managed to defeat Gashin, leaving him feeling frustrated. With enthusiasm and a bit of anger, Gashin challenged Xian to a rematch, insisting he could turn the tables and prove himself. At the same time, Brad, Raymond, and Sophia were busy trying to gather information about a mysterious person named Gobert. After several attempts, they finally managed to find crucial data that could help them. The details they uncovered provided a clearer picture of Gobert's background, which could be key to the success of their mission. In another scene, Amu was seen helping Masuzu. This didn't go unnoticed by his teammates, who commented that Amu seemed to be getting more comfortable with Masuzu compared to when he first joined. Their relationship appeared to be getting closer. Later on, Misuzu and the team were gathered while Amu, Gashin, and Shion decided to go shopping together. While they were out, Amu accidentally ran into Brad. Amu quickly apologized and walked away, but his voice seemed to trigger Brad's suspicion. The voice sounded very familiar to him, yet Brad couldn't immediately recall where he had heard it before. Growing increasingly curious, Brad decided to instruct Sophia and Raymond to follow Amu discreetly. After finishing their shopping, Amu, Shion, Gashin, and Misuzu decided to relax at a hot spring. However, their peace was disrupted when Brad and Raymond suddenly appeared. They got into a rather tense conversation with Amu and Gashin, discussing various topics, including rumors about the AMAIM ghost. During the conversation, Brad hinted that he felt like he had known them before, adding to the mysterious atmosphere. After the brief encounter, Brad and Raymond left, leaving Amu and Gashin feeling uneasy and a bit anxious. Something just didn't seem right. Amid the unfolding chaos, Ghost, a mysterious and deadly entity, launched a brutal attack on the Oki Islands. Its presence brought inevitable disaster and destruction. With great power, Ghost systematically destroyed the Asian military outposts stationed there, leaving a trail of devastation behind. Explosions echoed everywhere, and fires blazed over the ruins of fortresses, lighting up the night with an eerie glow. The attack was so swift and merciless that it forced the Asian military to retreat inland in disarray. Their lines were shattered and their morale crumbled amidst the chaos. In these critical moments, Amu, Gashin, and Shion stood out with their courage. The three of them prepared to face Ghost with fearless determination, driven by their resolve to protect the civilians trapped on the islands. Yatagarasu quickly organized a rescue mission, with their main focus being to ensure the safety of the Japanese citizens caught in the escalating violence. The team swiftly moved into position, evacuating civilians while facing the growing threat head-on. The situation was extremely urgent, with every passing second raising the stakes, especially as the terrifying enemy continued to advance, like a predator hunting its prey over the islands. Meanwhile, Brad and his team remained in the shadows, watching closely from a distance. They kept a sharp eye on the ongoing battle, ready to seize any gap or opportunity to capture Ghost for their own benefit. Their personal ambitions were shrouded in military duty, and the tension in the air grew heavier as both sides prepared for a major clash. On the Oki Islands, the battle reached its peak. Amu, Gashin, and Shion fought desperately against Ghost in a fierce duel. Their determination was unshaken, even as the challenges they faced grew more intense. The sound of clashing metal echoed through the air as they maneuvered amidst the chaos of battle. Each pilot displayed remarkable skills, combining agility and strategy in their efforts to take down Ghost. Amidst the battle, they managed to save 8 people, if only for a moment. However, when they confronted Ghost head-on, they quickly realized that this version of Ghost was far tougher than their previous encounter. Ghost's increased capabilities made it a truly formidable opponent, each of its attacks more vicious, forcing Amu, Gashin, and Shion to fight to the very edge of their abilities. In a desperate attempt to turn the tide, they devised a clever plan. They lured Ghost to an abandoned ammunition storage, a fortress that had once been a military stronghold. With precision and unwavering resolve, they set up a massive explosion, counting down with hearts pounding. The explosion shook the entire island. Its shockwave felt far and wide. A huge cloud of debris rose into the sky, blanketing the battlefield. For a moment, they felt victorious, believing they had finally defeated Ghost. A small glimmer of hope began to emerge in their hearts. However, as the dust settled and the smoke slowly faded, Ghost emerged from the rubble, completely unharmed. Its solid figure stood amidst the destruction, a manifestation of unstoppable power. The sight sent chills down their spines, a stark reminder that their enemy was no ordinary foe. Ghost's eyes glowed with a gaze of cold determination, as if growing stronger in the chaos it had created. With renewed spirit, Amu, Gashin, and Shion braced themselves for the next battle. They knew that Ghost was not an opponent to be faced with ordinary tactics. The stakes were now much higher. With many lives hanging in the balance, they knew there was no room for error. As the battlefield lay before them, littered with the remnants of previous clashes, they gathered their courage, ready to face the terror known as Ghost. United in a common purpose, they fought not just for themselves, but for a brighter future. Next, we see Amu, Gashin, and Shion fighting together, showing amazing teamwork as they engage in an intense and brutal battle. The stakes are much higher this time, and the tension is palpable. Every move they make is calculated, but the AMAIM Ghost seems unstoppable, countering their strategies with ruthless precision. The battlefield is pure chaos, explosions here and there, quick maneuvers, and close calls that keep adrenaline running high. Their team coordination, honed from many previous battles, is evident. But even with solid teamwork, their best efforts aren't enough to take down Ghost. Ghost's resilience seems inhuman. as if its strength is limitless and tireless. Every moment of the battle feels endless, and the weight of their mission grows heavier on their shoulders. In the midst of the struggle, the unthinkable happens. Amu's Kenbu is shattered into pieces, leaving only debris. The impact is devastating, and for a moment, hope seems completely lost. Everyone watches in horror, believing Amu has perished in the explosion. Gashin and Xian are shaken, struggling to accept the harsh reality of losing their friend and comrade amidst the chaos that still unfolds.